I would like to welcome everybody to the Sacramental Charismatic, and I am joined by my friend Selene Becerra. Not even close.
Perfect pronunciation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Selene is a worship leader, pastor, church planner, soon to be mom. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Are you scared?
A little bit.
Yeah, I figured I could manipulate you into being a guest though, because I feel like you can't say no. I mean,
Yeah.
You're my friend.
I love talking, so I probably wouldn't have said no anyway.
You were like, I would love to come and fix all your listeners.
Feel special like a celebrity? Absolutely.
Oh, celebrity. Wow. Well, so we've known each other for about a year now.
Yes.
And maybe we can talk a little bit about how we met and whatnot, and how actually why, because we're working together in some ways in ministry stuff.
Yeah.
But we met, I want to say it was about October last year.
Yeah, I think it was, because it was just starting to rain.
Yeah,
And
it was.
we were panicking, looking for a place to go, and you took us in.
Okay. Let's not jump ahead. Actually, let's talk about that in a minute here. But I'd love to know, just for anybody listening, who's maybe unfamiliar with you, what's kind of like your story. You are married. You're about to be a mom.
Yeah.
In about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
I guess.
Technically, actually, we just did the math, and it's more like 2 months.
I've been doing the math for you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I can't. My brain can't do math right now, so
I'm here to support you and your husband. So
thank you.
I keep reminding him you're gonna have a kid soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I guess so you live in the area of Northern California.
Yes. Whole life.
Yeah. How'd you come to faith in Jesus? But you're mid-20s. You're a young
late 20s.
For me, you're just a child. So tell us about your story a little bit.
Well, so like you said, growing up in the North State, my whole life, never moved out of this area. Pretty sheltered child. But yeah, my parents actually, so they came to the Lord, I want to say while my mom was pregnant. My dad took a little bit after to really, commit to the Lord. But anyway, so I grew up in the church. So my whole life I've known church life and everything. But I didn't make the decision to kind of, accept Jesus into my life and in my heart and really commit until I was about I want to say 10 or 11 years old. So we had just moved from our home church. So I grew up in one church right up until I was 10 years old, moved to another church. And I remember that the pastor there at that church, he loved to play movies on Friday nights. So I've always been used to 2 to 3 times a week church. And so obviously I think pastors themselves get tired of that. So this pastor loved to play movies and on Friday nights. And so I remember on a Friday night he played actually a movie about the rapture.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know
what
why.
Movie was this?
I don't remember.
Was it scary?
I want to say it was from the Left Behind series.
Oh, okay. So this is a recent one.
No, they were older. Well, maybe it wasn't Left Behind then.
Well, for those of us in our 40s, that's recent.
Okay.
Because there were these movies back in the 70s called A Thief in the Night that were super, they are almost like horror movies.
Scary? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what it was then. I was scared into believing.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You along with millions of other people.
Yeah.
So was this a Spanish-speaking church?
Yeah, I've grown up in a Spanish-speaking church my whole life.
Your whole life, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think it was strange to step into a church where it was in English.
Yeah. Really?
Because I didn't speak English until I was fluently. I didn't speak English until I was maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. Fluently. Because I remember going to kindergarten and not understanding what kids were saying.
Yeah. You told me this the other day when you were at our house, and I was shocked because you speak English so well.
Yeah.
And then, but you also go back and forth from Spanish and English all the time.
Yeah, I can swap. My brain works in both.
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you dream in Spanish or in English?
I don't actually. So now, obviously, I think given my career and everything, everything's in English. Even my internal monologue, the voice in my head.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, it's in English. But I do swap.
You fully adopted.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've been told I have a Valley Girl accent.
You told me that the other day.
Yeah. I've been told many times.
I would never say that about you.
Thank you.
That's so rude.
I've been told multiple times. They're like, so where did you grow up? LA? I'm like, no.
You're like,
no.
Yeah.
Of course not.
So you came to faith in a Spanish speaking Friday night kind of movie gathering.
Yeah.
You were like, I
after
don't
the
want to
movie-
be left
Yeah,
behind.
that was literally how
Yeah.
I like ran to the altar. I was like, please, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, God.
That's actually I think I was a believer as a young child, like, oh yeah, I believe in God.
Yeah, obviously.
But it wasn't until my mom went into a grocery store and left me and my sister out, and a trumpet sound happened that I thought
my
was
gosh.
the rapture. And that's when I actually was like, I want to follow Jesus. I made a public decision, got baptized like a week later. So
I'm dead.
yeah, we're both.
I've had those moments. Have you ever experienced that where maybe as a kid, obviously maybe not now, but as a kid, I remember I would wake up and if like my parents had taken my sister to the park or something, I would wake up and the house was empty and I'd just walk around and be like, did the rapture happen?
No, that's
while
actually,
I
that was totally it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When my mom came back out, we were like, did you hear the trumpet? Yeah. And I don't even personally hold to that theology anymore of the preacher rapture stuff.
Yeah.
So it's funny that the preacher rapture theology is what led me to get baptized.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, and how old were you? Were like 8 or 9?
Like 10 or 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
10 or 11.
I had my first experience with the Holy Spirit before that though, but it was really interesting. I actually, I didn't know what was happening at the time. But I remember at the church I grew up in, I remember they were having like a prayer night. And I mean, obviously the presence of the Lord was really strong and beautiful in the room. And I was out running with the kids, obviously in the hallway. I was like 5 or 6 at the time. And I saw my mom kind of like at the entrance of like the sanctuary. And so I ran up to her, and I still remember when I ran into the sanctuary, I felt like I got hit by a brick wall, and I just started sobbing.
Whoa.
And I was like, like, what's going on? But I think the presence of the Lord was just like so palpable.
Yeah.
It just kind of like overwhelmed me. And I remember even my mom was looking at me like, what is going on? And she was like, are you
What's
okay?
wrong with you? Get over
I'm
it.
like, I'm fine. And just like sobbing.
So was this this would be a Pentecostal / charismatic church?
I've grown up in Pentecostal churches my whole life.
So, I mean, it seems like a lot of Latino churches, Spanish-speaking churches, are either Roman Catholic or
or Pentecostal.
Yeah.
I think it's due to our culture and personalities. We're really loud people.
Oh, wow.
So I think it has to do with that.
I want to be very clear that the white guy in the room did not make that statement.
I'm allowed to say.
You're allowed to. You're allowed to. Yeah.
I think it does have to do. We're really loud and expressive. Yeah. So I feel like we don't fit.
I mean, I have been around some Spanish-speaking congregations that were more conservative evangelical into theology.
Yeah.
But were very much expressive in their worship. So it's kind of interesting because like their worship would be considered Pentecostal style.
Yes.
And then their Bible teaching would be like, we don't believe in speaking tongues. And I was like,
Well, I think
interesting.
I think maybe the original church I grew up in, maybe I believed in that stuff, kind of like how you said they're kind of split.
Yeah.
In their teaching versus their worship. But I'm too young I was too young at the time to really understand any of that.
When you agree, because we're going to talk about worship in a little bit, because you're a worship leader, I mean, that's one of the things is that you can be expressive in your worship and not have to be, like radical Pentecostal.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what got you into following Jesus.
Yes.
And then so from like 10, 11 years old, pretty committed to Jesus for the most part.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always had really strict parents. So, I mean,
They forced you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We should shout out to your mom and your dad because I love them as well. Your dad is is so funny. And then your mom she cooks amazing Mexican food. So
she really does. I
won
think
my
she's
heart over.
the most amazing cook out there.
Yeah. I was like, we need to become friends.
Yes.
She's like, oh, Pasta Lucas.
Yeah.
I was like, I just want your food. So, yeah, she's amazing too. And they're both really good leaders too.
They are.
Yeah. Your mom is a great preacher. I got to hear her preach on New Year's Eve at like midnight, which was 5 hours longer than I stay up. So
really glad I wasn't there for that.
Oh, you weren't there?
No.
Oh.
I was in Mexico.
Oh, that's right. You were. I actually knew that. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Now. I love our church services.
Yeah. I was like, all night? All night long?
Yeah. I think they started at like something crazy like 6 or 7. Yeah. And they went until like 1 a.m.
It was late.
Yeah.
I did leave eventually. There was a little bit of food and I was like, peace out.
Yeah.
So how many congregations have you been a part of that in kind of your journey?
Like as a member?
Yeah.
3 now.
3. Okay.
3.
So you went, so that initial church, which met here in town in a building we both know about, and then you were a part of a second Spanish speaking church,
Yes.
and then have now been a part of a church plant for the
Yes.
past. Yeah. And so you got married. How old were you when you got married?
I want to say 24,
Okay.
25.
Yeah, 25. And you married a young man
Yes.
named Haz. Who Haz might watch this because you're on it.
Yes.
He doesn't watch anything ever I send him, but he is the tallest Latino I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And so I like teasing him as looking like a white guy.
We're both very white looking. No one ever really assumes we're Mexican.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, you also said that people think that you're Japanese.
I'm Japanese, yeah. And my dad fed into that.
Yeah.
I won't tell the story because it's a bit racist.
Offensive. It's very offensive.
Yeah, it's a very offensive story, so I won't say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad came up with a whole adoption story and everything. Said that I was adopted and I was an unwanted little Japanese child.
Yeah, and since I'm part Japanese, I'm 25% Japanese. I love this story, and I'm like, yes, we'll take you. Yeah, so that's kind of like how you came to faith. When did you start getting involved in leadership, though? I mean, a part of that I'm questioning is your personality is you are. I think the reason why we probably get along really well is because we are both type A personalities, and you have a lot of drive. You want to see things change for the better. You're willing to put in a lot of energy and effort.
Yes.
Toward that, when did you start to sense that you had leadership gifting capacity?
I want to say pretty young. I don't want to like brag and say like I was
do a
natural
humble
born leader.
Do a humble brag.
Humble brag?
Like
probably like 10 years old.
Yeah, I was 10 and everybody kept making me be
Everybody
their leader.
Followed me.
Yeah.
I think I've known. I think I didn't really consider myself more a leader. I just knew I was really independent, and I know that that's like rare in people. You know, people are very codependent by nature. And
you didn't have a problem swimming upstream.
Exactly. Yeah. Doing whatever I wanted, stuff like that. And so I know that did kind of encourage others. And I think naturally created like a leadership role in my life.
So you kind of sensed that early on.
Yeah, pretty early on.
And then, I mean, we're going to talk about women in leadership in a little bit here too, but I mean, that probably helped shape some of your trajectory going towards leadership.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I always aimed for a position in leadership. Though, of course, that is also like an area of my life that the Lord worked in because I'm naturally really prideful. And so I fight against it a lot.
You say that all the time. And I'm like, I don't.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, that means the Lord has done his work.
Yeah. It's evidence that God has actually worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I guess, that kind of brings us up, and obviously you're skipping a whole lot of experiences and whatnot, but because I don't want to put you on blast right now, but you have also gone through struggles in your life. And,
100%.
And, podcast is not the place to maybe air all of them, but you've lived and you've, had struggles, and then you made your way back to Jesus and have been very faithful, and you've been involved in leadership for how long now?
Actually not that long. I wasn't really given an opportunity to serve like as officially as a leader until maybe, I don't know, I want to say maybe like 3 years ago.
Okay.
Within the church, maybe like 3 years ago.
Yeah, okay. And then have been involved in a church plant, which we'll talk about in a minute, for the last year and a half? Yeah. Because April was your 1 year anniversary?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like a year and a half.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, so we met, I guess we can kind of, the story is kind of cool, I think. Yeah. Cause for me, it goes back 9 years or 10 years. You guys have been part of my dreams for 10 years.
Okay. Now I know what you're referring to. I was like, what do you mean?
10 years ago, I met a Latino on the road. And I mean, because I think so. I had pastored before we moved here 10 years ago. I'd pastored in northern Wisconsin, and I would jokingly always say our ethnic diversity was like Catholics and Lutherans. It was just religious because it was all white people. We had this Indian couple I met. Actually, I didn't even meet them. I heard about them that worked at a hotel, and I've always been around a lot of multicultural and multi-ethnic groups. And so there was none there. So, if you hear someone, you're like, I got to become friends.
I got to find them.
And so I literally showed up at a hotel and walked in, and it was this Indian couple that had this little girl that was their little daughter, and they were a marriage. They were a love marriage, meaning that their parents hadn't put them together. Like in a lot of Indian culture,
Yeah.
it's arranged.
So it wasn't arranged.
Yeah, it was like they
Oh.
actually fell in love. So the story was amazing because they
Yeah.
left India to basically be together, and they were in some ways determined they were. I think the working situation was actually quite unhealthy, and it was almost indentured servanthood type of thing.
Oh my gosh.
But we just became friends, and it worked out great for me because I got all this amazing Indian food. There's a theme here. But they started going to our church, and we just really became great friends. But that was pretty much it. It was mostly all white people in our community, which was great. I don't mean great like keep them out. It was like I loved where we were at.
Yeah.
But then when the Lord like clearly led us to move to California to transition into leading here, before we got here, I really felt like God had given us a vision and a heart to be a part of a multicultural, multi-ethnic church community. Well, then we get here, and Northern California is pretty homogenous in the white community, but then it's very homogenous in the Latino community too.
Yes.
Right? So I see these two communities, and I'm like, man, I wonder how we can, I don't know, try
Mesh.
to, and so like we started having, because we had some leaders that stepped into leadership pretty quickly. One Latina, Irene Sanchez, who went on to marry our associate pastor, who is from South Africa, white dude. I want to be very clear. Wes, he's been on this pod. I mean, he's co-hosted with me for a long time. But when she started leading and speaking Spanish, I remember we started having more and more Latinos coming, and they were mostly like second and third generation and fourth generation Latinos. So heavily. And I think we should talk about a lot of this. This actually might be helpful for some people, but they were like 1 foot in their Latino cultural heritage, and then 1 foot very American in their cultural, like they're very similar to you. Like I see you can like, I'm like, you're amazing. Cause I'm like, you're like, like you go in, hola, blah, 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 blah. I can't say any words because it all is like rolling R's.
That was perfect.
Yeah. Everybody who speaks Spanish understood that. But then you go into your Valley Girl.
My Valley Girl personality.
Yeah, you said it. I didn't. But I mean, I think it's really beautiful, and it's inspiring, and because I see it from a missiological standpoint where you're able to exegete your cultures really well, and then you're able to like connect, and it's really cool because like I can't do that. And so, man, this stupid iPad is making noises. Anyway, so like we have this, we start having like Latinos coming, and it was like, man, I think there's a whole community of Latinos that we could potentially reach that we have to be really intentional about. And I think the more intentional we were, the more Latinos we had coming. But we started seeing a need for a Spanish-speaking church. I can say for sure 8 years of prayer and planning, and I would meet with like some Latinos that were coming, and I'd be like, hey, I'd like cast vision about like, wouldn't it be amazing to have a Spanish Lavinia? Every one of them was like, that's awesome. No, not me. It's like
because you were trying to recruit them to get that started.
Yeah, I was like, don't you want to be a pastor? It's so easy and so fun. There's no heartache ever. I would lie. But everyone was always like not interested, or they just didn't see that as a calling. And it was probably true, obviously, but it was like always this back, like this thing on the back of my mind, truly for at least, I've been here for almost 10 years, and for the whole entire time, it was always like a thing. And so then last September, I get a text message, and it's like, hey, a friend of mine is starting a church, and didn't say anything about a Spanish-speaking church. But it was like, can you give me our bylaws? They want to see bylaws. And I was like, okay. So I sent them. And then like 2 weeks later, hey, would you be willing to meet with them? I was like, okay, And then I have our first meeting where it was like, I think 6 of our board members and I think 8 of your church's board members.
Yeah.
And we
I think a couple was missing that day.
Yeah. And we discover that there's this new Spanish-speaking congregation in town that's been meeting. So that was in October. They've been meeting since April.
Yeah.
And you were meeting in a community center,
Yes.
and they were curious about potentially using our building.
Yes.
That's how it happens. That's how we meet.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So fill in the blanks. What else can we know about that?
Well, we actually started first gathering in people's backyards. Like literally, I think, given how it all played out, with just a few group of families, or this small group of few families got together, and we're just kind of like, okay, like, what are we going to do? Are some of us going to go to a different church? Are we going to agree to all stay together? So we all ended up voting on it a few times, actually. We gathered maybe like 2 or 3 times, because everybody wanted to be sure that we were being led by the Holy Spirit in our decision making, maybe not taking on something that the Lord didn't mean for us to take on at that time. But I think all of us were just wanting to stay together given the situation. And
before that, so I don't know how much in the situation you want to go into, but there had been a large group of you were no longer a part of the church that you were a part of.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, so you kind of had this like really strong knit community relationally, friendships. Many of the people in this community had been together for 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us had, I think some of the families, like I knew one of the families that, was involved in the situation my whole life. Like they're literally my first birthday party pictures. So I think, I don't think given the circumstance, we didn't want to like further keep splitting, and just like not be together, since we had been together in our walks of faith for so long. So we ended up voting on it. Everybody stayed together. So then we're like, okay, where are we going to gather? Realistically, we're not really a church in like literal terms, like gathering in a building or whatnot.
And what you mean by that is you didn't have a
501c3.
Because
Exactly.
you were worshiping together. I mean, it's like how the early church.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wonder if they were ever like, are we a church?
Yeah. What do you call us?
Yeah. That guy Paul came and started this and then left, so what do we do?
That's kind of a situation where like, what are we?
Yeah.
But anyway, we knew we were a church,
What are we? Yeah.
We weren't
Who am I? You're
a church.
the greatest identity crisis of all time. Yeah. And so, and actually I think in some ways, the kind of the cool thing at that time for me was that there wasn't like one specific leader at the time.
No,
you were a community of people trying to discern together.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
Yeah. Every decision was carried out by a vote from everybody, which again, we weren't that many people at the time. When we first started, that we all gathered like the very first night that we were like, okay, what are we going to do? There was maybe 20 of us, not including like kiddos and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't ever count kids. Totally.
Yeah. No. Ugh, I mean, they're only the future, but whatever.
Yeah. Ugh. Yuck. Yeah.
So not counting the kids, mostly because they were never still enough to be counted.
This is the difference between someone who has had 5 kids and they're older now, and you're like looking forward to it. You're like, oh, it's so ideal. Oh, my child's going to change the world. I'm like, they are just going to, they're so exhausting.
They're going to destroy the world.
I'm totally kidding. I love them all. So sometimes
maybe as a pastor, you should be careful.
Yeah, no, I take that back. I love kids ministry. The next generation is the most important. I want to go on record. Okay. So you had like about 20 people. You're trying to discern the future, and that's where you're at.
Yeah. So we had been gathering people's houses, and obviously came like the summer where some of us were literally like passing out mid-service because it was so hot, and we were in a backyard in the sun.
No AC. Oh,
so,
we should put in context. AC. Where we live, how hot is it?
Disgustingly hot. It gets to like the 120s.
Yeah, like people are like, oh, it's hot, like 80?
No. 80 is a breezy day.
I love 80. Yeah, 80 is cold. I put sweaters on at 80.
Oh, I don't.
It's something weird. It's weird.
I haven't worn a sweater in a while being pregnant. You're hot all the time.
Yeah,
so.
I suppose. But so it was like 115, 110, 108.
I remember one day I was playing the keyboard. I wasn't pregnant yet, but I was playing the keyboard. And, I mean, I always get like hot and sweaty during worship because, you're pouring out your heart and soul. But I'm also outside. No joke. At some point, I'm like holding onto the keyboard because my head just started spinning.
Yeah.
And I was sweating like buckets, and Haas is just like staring at me, my husband staring at me from the audience.
He thinks you're about to pass out.
Yeah, as soon as I finish the worship set, he's like, let's go inside. I'll get you water. Are you okay? Can you breathe? Are you fine?
He's such a good husband.
Oh, he is. He's a huge sweetheart. Complete opposite of me.
This is why you should embrace white people worship, though, because we are not so expressive.
We can take it a little easier.
120, we're like just very quietly. hand goes up like this. We're not clapping and dancing and
yeah.
running around.
I think I couldn't worship that way even if I wanted to. It's just been hardwired in me.
White people use the same white people use the same excuse for why they can't be expressive. So maybe we should just all have biblical worship. Anyway, moving on. So okay, so you are in the backyard. You've decided that it's time to do something a little bit different, and then you moved to the community center.
Yeah, we moved to community center. Honestly, mostly because of the weather. So we moved into the community center, a really small room, because there just wasn't too many of us yet to like rent anything bigger. So
at this time, when you moved into the community center, what were your numbers approximately? Are we talking about 30, 40 people?
I would say a little bit more. Okay. I think, including the kids, I think we did count once. It was maybe like 60 people.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because the room was pretty full. It was a small room, and we set up chairs longwise. And we did like 3 sections, like the typical 3 sections with a few rows in each one. And yeah, I mean, the room did get to a point sometimes where it was like you really had to search for a chair, and maybe you couldn't sit with your family because you had to like split up a little bit to fill in the gaps here and there. But yeah, we did eventually grow out of that room as well.
Yeah. So that was the first room, and then you moved into this larger room there?
We stayed in that one room.
Oh, you were the whole time? The one I went to one service.
Yes.
That was the okay.
Yeah, we stayed in that room the whole time. Yeah, we would... Yeah. We would have food there, move all the chairs, bring out tables. What
was the timeline from being at the community center till when you started meeting in the building here at We Share?
I want to say it was just like 3 months, 4 months. It wasn't that long. Yeah, it wasn't that long. It was probably like 3 months because I know we moved in there about midsummer. Okay. Or early summer. Yeah. Because we were all like, we're gonna all pass out. And
October 1, I think, is when you moved over to.
And I think it took us maybe like a month, if that, to finally like have our services here. Because I think we even talked to our congregation about it. We announced we held it to a vote. We said, hey, we're thinking about renting this building from this church. Our service hours would change and that kind of thing. And so,
because that was a big difference. Was you had a morning service, and then
which I think is a Pentecostal thing in the Hispanic community.
Morning service,
we've never had church services in the afternoon, ever. Well, at least me.
Yeah,
me and just about everyone I talked to in the congregation, they're like, "Ew, church in the afternoon." Yeah.
I think that's. I know. I'm like, I don't know why you guys.
We love it now.
Yeah, I would have voted no.
Yeah. A few of them were like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, but so at that time, we had met with your. What was fascinating to me, so this is actually now I'm thinking kind of funny. So we had at one time allowed a local congregation to use our building. I don't know if I ever told you there was a Spanish speaking.
I don't remember.
Yeah, and so they met, and really nice family. And I found out that they were oneness Pentecostals, and meaning they don't believe in the Father, Son, and the Spirit. The historic Orthodox, I would say, biblical teaching on that. So I met with the pastor after that because I was deep. I mean, I'm about as Trinitarian as you can get. I actually think that is heresy. I think it's also really damaging for a number of reasons. But so I met with the pastor, and he was like, I don't really know. Like he was like, you're kind of like your typical. This is mean. A very typical Pentecostal, and kind of like, I don't know about theology. I just love Jesus. It's like, okay. So we were talking, and that they eventually moved to another building. So when I first met with your board, the first question I asked them, I was like listening to them.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah, and I was like, so do you guys believe in the Trinity? And they're all like, yes. Like, how dare you?
They were like scared that you opened with that question. I remember my dad said, he's like, can you believe what he asked us?
Yeah. I was like, no, I want to know. I want to know right now. Do you guys... and then it was funny though, because we talked about theology a little bit, and that's probably not only theology. I think we talked about pragmatic things too. But for me, it's like I do think that good theology frees people and bad theology hurts people, and so theology really matters to me. And it was interesting because like I was like, okay, so you guys are charismatic too, and I don't think Latinos don't use that theological description. You would say Pentecostal.
They don't like it. I think it does have a little bit of a negative connotation to it.
Interesting, because I'm like, I am charismatic and not Pentecostal.
Yeah.
Or lowercase p Pentecostal, lowercase p. So it's interesting because like that's what I've learned is that there's these labels that that are theological terms that are used, by theologian people.
Yes.
And then there's like everybody else, who are
Yep.
like, and I'm like, because I was like, so you guys are Pentecostal, but do you guys believe this? And they were like, no. And I'm like, but that's Pentecostal.
Yeah.
It was very interesting how we're using all these terms. And so you voted, and the congregation decided to actually, I didn't know that they were all involved in that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Since, we started off that way where everybody had a say in just about every matter, we kept it that way. Obviously, also because we didn't have a board established, like a group of leaders established until, maybe 3-4 months. So when they came to you to talk about renting out the building and stuff, they hadn't been established as a board for that long. I want to say maybe a month or two max. So we were still really, really used to taking or making decisions as a group. So the congregation all voted, and I think it was a unanimous vote. Everybody was in favor.
Yeah. To go to a different
move,
building.
Yeah, to an actual church building.
Yeah. It was interesting because I attended one service in the afternoon, or no, in the morning. Yeah. I think I don't know what I did. I think
we used to have our services at 11, so I think you had to have skipped your second service.
I did skip. Yeah, I think I was like, well, I don't know who. I just didn't preach that day, obviously, but so I went and saw, and it reminded me of I've been involved in a lot of either Central American, aka Mexican Lavinas, or Lavinas in the U.S. that were primarily Spanish speaking.
Yeah.
And it was like, real similar, like everybody's running around, clapping, screaming.
We were very loud. You know
very
what's
expressive.
funny? There's another Pentecostal church that gathered down the hall.
And they make you guys look mild.
They really do.
Yeah.
I heard that they were physically like running and stuff.
Yeah,
I guess our kids were the ones that were always nosily over there, and they're like, they're running.
Yeah. No. So then we met, and I think October you guys, so about almost a year ago, transitioned into sharing a building, and that's what we've been doing for almost a year is sharing a building.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's been an interesting.
I've loved it
for all of us. It's been kind of I mean, we have too, but. Yeah,
I won't speak for anyone else, but I always
like, I wonder how this is working out for. Well, it's funny because I think some of your churches leaders, and actually not just leaders, I feel like I now consider a lot of people in your church to be friends. Like I mean, they're not necessarily all in leadership. Some of them I just see all week long or during the week. People who serve on your teams, and it's been interesting. I think navigating. Because I feel like you and I have probably worked more together because of this, because you are like the designated, hey, you can talk to those white people person.
The Mexican white girl.
Yeah,
They're like, you understand them.
They're like, you're a part Asian. You and Luke can, you guys can talk Japanese to each other. And that doesn't work. So because we only know like 3 words.
Like how to say hi and thank you.
Yeah, like mushi mushi, konnichiwa. But you and I have had to work together a lot more just for the dynamics related to planning.
Yes.
Right? Because that's been probably the biggest challenge. Do you feel like that's been the biggest challenge?
Yeah, because again, I'm making a lot of stereotypes. But
you're not helping the Latino
really
cause. I'm
not.
gonna come in and be like, "Oh, not all Latinos." Yeah.
But I feel like Hispanic people in general aren't big on planning. So I was actually appointed church secretary as well because of that.
Yeah.
Because I think they just realized she's very type A, very organized.
She will take notes.
Exactly. So they're like, you go figure out planning stuff and then just communicate to us what we need to do. So I think that's also why they kind of put me at the forefront of that. Also because language is a barrier for some. So
and I think maybe for people listening who might be exploring church merges or like partnerships like this, that's why I think this would be kind of helpful, because it has been interesting. Trying to the calendar, right? Because it's like we have this build. I don't know how large the building is, but we have this sanctuary that can seat up to like 300 people ish. We've got a cafe that I think the room says 80, but we've done 120
I've for
to
sure seen
130.
120 people in there.
Yeah, and then Well, our auditorium, I think, says 480. And that's like,
Yeah, the little
yeah, I'm
yeah,
like, I think
I've
that's
seen that.
the legal, what I'm like, that's like, no way. But, and then we've got a bunch of classrooms and we've got this kitchen and some other rooms. And we've been trying to figure out how to like reserve and getting
Yes,
people to do that because we all don't do that,
I know.
very well. So, in fact, I think we had an issue last week, and I was like, I think it was your mom who stuck her head in, and we
Yeah.
were getting ready to leave, and then they just left, and then they went and had a meeting down the hall or
Yeah,
whatever.
down the hall in
And I didn't want
another
to interrupt
room.
them, and I was like, the room's empty. You guys can.
Yeah,
That's funny.
I know.
But well, that's one of the things about the respect thing about the Latino community,
Yeah.
like of like, oh, I'm so sorry, and it's like, no, you don't have to be sorry.
Yeah.
Come on, it's yours. But yeah, it's been, for the most part, it's been really rewarding though. I feel like, for our side, I feel like it's been really good because we've developed friendships and we've been able to
Yes.
work together. We've had, two bilingual Sunday services together.
Has it only been two?
Yeah. And then we've done one night of worship
Yes.
together. Hasn't it been two?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it has only been twice.
Yeah, you guys don't want to be around the white people because we don't dance and
That's
jump
not
in
true.
circles. So you've been like, you guys are too low on the.
We have had to tell some people like, hey, no offense, but you got to bring it down a notch because you're going to scare the white people.
You have really done that.
Well,
That's
we've
so
done it
funny.
personally. Obviously, we
Oh.
haven't like announced it. I
Yeah.
think people would be
I think you
like,
should do it on a Sunday morning.
yeah,
Sunday
like bring it
service.
down a notch.
Yeah, me, I'm like, oh, hey, it's okay to smile.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So, okay. So that's kind of how we met, I think, there has been, I'm kind of curious, like what have been some of the major challenges with starting a new church? Cause I think in your so you guys are not a Lavinia, you're not
No,
connected to the
yeah.
vineyard. You're an independent
Mhm.
Pentecostal, not charismatic,
Yeah.
Pentecostal congregation. What's been some of the challenges, do you feel like, to do that?
We've had so many. Where do I start?
Yeah.
I think one of them has just been like theology.
Mhm.
I think we have, like I said, we're families from all sorts of different backgrounds. Just because we're Hispanic doesn't mean we're all brought up the same, obviously. So we have different theological backgrounds, and people have come from churches from different denominations and stuff. So I think that's been one of the challenges. I think just kind of establishing like what our doctrines are and, what we agree and don't agree on. I think
Mhm.
that's been one of the challenges. But thankfully, I think we've all kind of been open to discussing and then voting on it, or at least agreeing to disagree.
Mhm.
I think that's just a problem you're going to run into in the Christian community in general,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I don't think everybody believes the same and everybody interprets things differently.
Yeah.
So that's been a challenge for sure. But thankfully it hasn't been one that has affected like our church's health or anything. It's just led to some conversations and stuff. So that's been one. The second one has just been that, again, another stereotype. Hispanics aren't very like knowledgeable in like the legal stuff of what it is to like exist as a nonprofit organization in America. So I've had to like educate our board a lot on like what are some of the things we need to do to be like legally structured as a church and a nonprofit especially. So that's been really hard, getting organized, because none of us, and I mean none of us, have worked as pastors or church planters or anything
Yeah.
in our lives.
That's what's so remarkable to me, because I'm like, you guys do not know what you're doing at
Yeah.
all,
No,
and
we
yet you're
don't.
still. Yeah, it's like
I don't
you're
know why
still,
we thought this was a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it kind of is. I mean, I think from an outside, it's like you can see that in some ways. And I don't
Yeah,
mean that in a
for
mean way,
sure.
but it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is something that
No, it's fairly obvious.
Yeah. Maybe, but in some ways too, it's been kind of cool, because I think that's also given you some freedom to be able to like try new things and explore
For
things.
sure.
Yeah, it's like, because you don't
Yeah.
know, because like somebody with a lot of experience might be like, yeah, it's not going to work, but it's kind of cool to see you try,
Yes.
because I think
Yeah.
sometimes maybe people who have more experience might not be willing to try.
Yes.
Our imagination is limited by our past experience, or
Yeah.
what we learned. Because I feel like, having gone to seminary and all that, it was like after I became a pastor, I had to like almost unlearn some of the things that I
Yeah.
learned in seminary, because I'm like, oh, like for example, I had like so many professors talk about strong boundaries and not ever being friends with your congregation, because the school I went
interesting.
to, the denomination that was connected to that is very much known for that. It's like there is a strong, and then I'd be reading like the book of Philippians, and Paul has such a warm, loving friendship with
Yeah.
this congregation. It was like, that doesn't seem to match up, like it
Yeah.
doesn't seem healthy to not have people in the church that you're friends. Like that actually seems unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are, what are any other?
Actually, what you just mentioned has also kind of been a challenge for us. So the name of our church is House of Restoration.
No, there's more to it.
House of Restoration Living Word.
Yes. And
I don't know why we ever added that last
And in
part.
Spanish, can you please say it?
Casa de Restauración Palabra Viva.
It sounds so cool.
So long of a name.
It is long.
I wasn't in favor of it,
I
but
say casa.
whatever.
I'm like, hey, casa.
Yeah, casa. So the whole point of our church's name is that we came out of this other church and a little bit of a traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something that everybody could agree on was that before we moved forward as a church, or newly established church,
Mm-hmm.
or before we allowed people to join this group of ours, we needed to heal from what it was that we had gone through, but I do think that in a way, though we're all of us have been on our healing journey like separately together, if that makes sense. Like we're kind of just suffering together, but we're each, healing whatever it is that we need to heal from. I feel like there are a little bit of an unhealthy fears that have kept us from trying, or like taking on the mentality of like, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, we can always change. I think people are a little bit more closed off. And I think they're like, no, we can't do that, because then we'd be repeating things from our past. And it's like, okay, well, you don't know that because other people were doing those things and they didn't handle that well. So who's to say that you wouldn't handle it better?
Yeah.
That type of thing. So that has been a holdback for us, I think, at least that I've been able to witness.
Yeah.
I don't think they would necessarily agree, but
Yeah.
it helps to be an outsider, not so much, like so heavily involved, just kind of like aiding in
It's
the
hilarious
organization.
that you say you're not heavily involved, because I'm like, you're more involved than anybody I know. I mean, I think that what I've seen is that your congregation's commitment as a community is really deeply inspiring, I think, in some ways. And then sometimes I'm like, what? But it almost gets to this issue of honor culture, really.
Yeah.
Because I do think there's a implicit, there's like a theological framework, I think, that can be unhealthy, because I think a downstream consequence to that would be, when you have an honor culture, you are willing to overlook like things that are unhealthy and that are actually harmful, but you don't want to say anything about it because you don't want to be dishonoring,
Yes.
But on the other hand, too, like in a healthy environment, you see a level of commitment within the congregation to where, I mean, people show up and they're willing to give, and because you guys have a lot of services and a lot of different things going on, and people are here, so it's kind of cool. So those are some of the challenges you guys have faced as a congregation, and continue to, but God's present with you guys, and you guys are trying to work through it. So
I remind everybody that we're here because of God's grace, because we definitely don't know what we're doing, and I don't know how we made it this far.
Yeah, well,
I like to keep everyone humble.
I thought it was interesting, like when I met with them in September and October, I was like, the fact that you guys started in April and you're still here is kind of a testimony, because you guys did, it wasn't like anybody knew what they were doing, like there's no church planting manual for you guys that you're using, right? Like it's like, flip a coin, okay, that sounds good, let's try that. It's like
quite literally.
Well, I would love to talk to you a little bit about some of the women in ministry stuff too, because I think that is an area where people disagree at, obviously in the wider church, but also even in your local church, there's been discussions about that. And like I told you the other day, I've given some of your leaders a couple books in Spanish.
So grateful
for
that.
I'm like, you need to read this book. It'll help just think theologically about it, But like you started out, you're born natural leader, natural born leader. Yeah. humble
as can be.
And so many followers.
Yes.
I'm curious, like, because I like one of the things that I've seen about you, and I believe this is true about you and your husband. Like I don't. It's like funny, because I think we've talked about this, where it's like I'm not sharing this to like manipulate you, or I don't ever want you to feel like this pressure. Like I want you to follow like what God has clearly spoken to you. But as an outside person watching you and your husband, I just see so much gifting and calling, and like you guys are, to me, the epitome of what a a pastoral like husband wife scenario team looks like.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that you guys are both, because your husband is like one of the most pastoral people I
He
know.
really is.
Yeah, he just,
I've told him that since
man,
we were like kids.
he walks into the room and he's like, "Hey, connection, connection, connection."
My
Everybody
worst
loves
nightmare.
him. Yeah, he's like extrovert, like, "Let's go," hang out.
Yeah.
And then, but so he's just really good with people. You are too, though. I don't think you're at all what you think you are. You just don't find
know.
life. It's the introvert extrovert thing,
Yes.
right? Where it's like it is more challenging, probably
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally to be in that space. But you
Yes.
do it really well.
Thanks.
But you're both just like, you're a really strategic leader, thinker. You're good at planning. You have a lot. So you guys are just like the perfect blend.
Yeah,
of those
like
two
perfect
things.
puzzle pieces. I tell everybody, I'm like, we are definitely the epitome of opposites attract.
Yeah, yeah.
And why it's so great to be so different to somebody in marriage. I think I've only seen positives from it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've had our disagreements, but
Yeah. I mean, but it's really cool. I told your mom the other day.
yeah.
I was like, I think they're called to plant churches or a church, to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And she's just like, oh. I was like, yeah. It was
My
funny.
mom also agrees that Haas has like the heart of a pastor.
Totally.
For sure.
Yeah. He's I mean, he's amazing. So, but I'm just curious about like, how have you navigated, that? Because in some ways you have to accept that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a lot of things in culture, and especially in church culture, that might want to be like, no, like you need to know your place, and women should
Yeah.
remain silent, and it's men need to. Actually, I called your husband on this the other day when we were hanging out, when he was like, "Well, I'm going to make a decision for my family," and I was like, I thought we, and then he's like, "Well, I mean, we were talking about it." It was like, I was teasing him. How have you navigated that, and like, what brought you to this place of being okay? I guess okay with your calling.
Yeah. Well, and like I said earlier when we were talking about this, kind of like planning our conversation, I actually didn't run into too many problems with like women in leadership, or maybe I just wasn't aware of them, because obviously, like when you're a kid and you're just serving, because like I've served in worship ministry since I was like 8 years old. I mean, I was singing songs on stage with my mom when I was like 5, or like 4 even. But I've been part of worship ministry specifically since about like 9 or 10 years old. But I didn't really become aware of these conversations of like women can't lead until I started getting a little bit older. You start having like conversations with like the kids, like, hey, like you're 15, 16 years old, someday soon or in the future, you're going to get married and you have to know your place in your marriage. Like your husband will lead and you have to submit completely to him. And I'm not saying that any of that is anti-biblical or wrong theology, but I think it was just, I became more aware that it was twisted to like the advantage of men, and that women weren't really allowed to do anything.
It's incomplete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's incomplete.
Yeah, because
and
there's
that's what kills me.
Yeah, the mutual submission. I think Ephesians 5 always gets used as this. Wives, submit to your husbands,
Yes.
and then it's like we stop.
Yeah, that's I think as I got older and I started reading the word for myself and just having conversations with the Lord about it, it infuriated me and kind of like this sparked
You seem
this
like
desire to rebel.
Yeah. You're like, no,
Yeah,
burn
exactly.
it all down. Yeah.
And then I think even more so now that I'm older and that I have what I think is a really great marriage that a lot of people can learn from. And I say that as humbly as possible because I know we're young and we're starting, our marriage. We will be 3 years married in January. So we're obviously still in the beginning stages of our marriage. But I think my husband and I have demonstrated that you don't need to be like an authoritarian, like as a husband in your household.
Yeah.
And just subject your wife to I think like to some extent emotional abuse, to like tell her she can't think or do anything for herself, which is kind of what you see a lot, I think in like Hispanic churches, is that women can't really speak up or say anything or really lead without their husband's permission. And my dad has never really lived that way either. I mean, he has definitely pulled his moments, where he's like, I'm the man of the house.
Yeah.
You listen to me.
And then your mom's like, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah. And then we all laugh and then it stops there.
Yeah.
But my dad has always been, I mean, he has 2 daughters. His youngest is obviously my brother. But he had 2 daughters his whole life, plus my mom. So obviously he's had like a woman-led household his whole life. And so my dad has always been super supportive of us in our callings. So I think that's what frustrated me so much is I'm like, I could see where a man wouldn't be intimidated to acknowledge like a woman's calling and leadership, because my dad has always told me too that I'm a leader. And so, I mean, I took that on very early on. I mentioned that I'm a daughter of immigrants, so obviously, naturally, I've been a leader in my house because I had to step into a role of leadership, like helping my parents understand and navigate a life in America. And so, super independent. So naturally, I think that's what granted me the ability to be more of a leader rather than a follower, because I don't really depend on anyone. So I know that the Lord took that, which was a little bit of trauma once I got a little bit older, but I think the Lord took that and made it a good thing, allowing me to help other women step into this more of like an independent nature leadership role. And so I think that's why it's been really hard to hear now that I'm older that women aren't allowed to lead in the church, because I'm like, well, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And the Lord called me to do it. So are you trying to tell me that what the Lord called me to do isn't real or isn't okay? I think that's where.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm curious about this is as maybe just a methodological aside. It seems like, because I think I grew up in a complementarian, I think, framework, because I think most of the church for most of my life, that just was it was default.
Yeah.
Like when I went to seminary, that all the classes I had were pretty much from that. And the books I would read from egalitarians, quite honestly, weren't very good. They weren't very convincing to me. I think they oftentimes they would, skirt around doing the biblical theological stuff, and it would always be practical, experiential arguments, which I'm not saying that I don't want to minimize those, because I think those are part of the way that we, the way that we process and make decisions is, we would say, primarily scripture is our authority, but then we can't deny the role of experience, tradition, and reason, to use the Wesleyan quadrilaterals framework. But I'm curious about, because I think some of the resources that I've given to some of your leaders, and the book that you're reading right now, it's what I found when I actually started doing my homework, I decided, I was like, I really need to wrestle with the biblical theology here. And after I did that, it was like, okay, I can't hold to a complementarian view, because I don't think that's what Paul was doing here. Because I did recognize the way that Paul did ministry seemed to be different than what Paul wrote. That was my first, okay, I need to and I don't think that it's inconsistent. I think that there was something going on under the text, maybe, that I didn't understand culturally. But have you seen, because I think that's the only way to really engage with that with people who don't. It's like, well, okay, let's do the biblical theology here. Let's really wrestle with 1 Timothy 2 and what did Paul mean? What was the thing that was happening there? Because Paul doesn't follow his own advice on that text. He doesn't follow that in Acts, or with other leaders. How are you making out? Because you're reading this book right now, or you are.
I started
is it helping provide a stronger biblical framework for you, or I'm curious about how. Because I'm curious about how the biblical theology, because I know that you care about Bible and theology. Right? Is that something that you feel like maybe more people need to be exposed to, or is that just something people are not in the Pentecostal world? Because you guys love the Bible.
Yeah. I hope we do.
You guys read a lot of it.
I know. Well, I think for sure, there's been a lot of misinterpretation of those, like you said, especially what's said in 1 Timothy. And like you said, I do feel for example, my dad says it all the time. He says that there are a lot of women in the Bible that supported Jesus's ministry and even Paul's ministry. And he talks about those women that supported them financially. And even they were great examples for Timothy. I think it was his mother, right? Who
his grandmother and his
grandmother. Who he references and says, obviously you've learned a lot from her. I think a lot of men don't consider that even good biblical foundation for women that have kind of set a path for men to learn more about the Lord through. My dad talks about that constantly, and he kind of reminds the men that have talked about 1 Timothy 2. My dad has also kind of explained it. So my dad has taught me a lot about that. He's a great teacher of the word. He says himself that he still has a lot to learn, but I feel like we've learned together. He's also kind of helped me understand the context of why Paul was writing those letters in those times, and why he was telling Timothy why women shouldn't do this or why women should do this. And I think that a lot of the people that stand in favor of the argument that women can't be in leadership aren't really looking past, I can't remember what the theological terms are, but they're just taking the word like at its face value.
Yeah, surface level reading. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And they're not thinking contextually or like historically or even culturally. So I think a lot of that is what's missing.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's important to acknowledge what those scriptures are saying, but to look beyond the word. And I think that's what we're lacking a lot in that argument, which is like what drives me crazy about like how people interpret the scriptures sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, you really can't take those things for surface level. I think it takes a lot of guidance from the Holy Spirit to kind of ask, okay, like what is it that you're trying to explain to me in this scripture? You know, what else is there? I mean, just translation alone. So I didn't actually like care too much about what translation of the Bible I was reading until I did a little bit more research on like each translation, stuff like that. So
oh,
yeah. And how like some scriptures were kind of changed a lot in translation to mean something that maybe the Greek didn't originally mean to say.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff I think is essential to consider when you're interpreting biblical text and what maybe they are trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than just take them at face value and be like, see, women can't speak.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, because it just seems like, you know, like the whole, this is super controversial, I think, amongst fundamentalists. You know, when you start talking about moving beyond the Bible, because they want to be like, no, you know, but it's like, you know, the fact that you have to understand the cultural, the sociological, rhetorical, the cultural setting in order to understand the actual text, you know, and I think that it does take work and study and wrestling with more than just, you know, the King James version of the Bible, right? Because it's like, yeah, there's limitations in that translation too. Like I have no doubt that God hasn't used the King James version in a lot of different ways, because I know there's a Spanish version of that too.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, yeah, but I don't know. It's not the most accurate, you know, it's not more accurate than the original languages, for example, you know, even though some people, you know, don't seem to recognize that, but yeah, so that's interesting. So you like, because it seems like, you know, you have accepted your calling and, you know, you're wrestling with, you know, the biblical theology behind it and then trying to navigate like what that looks like. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, so I think that you obviously are okay with being a leader.
Yeah.
You've accepted that.
Yes.
Because you just lead. So, but you've been a worship leader though for a long time. I mean, you lead on a Sunday morning.
Yes. Yeah, like lead worship. So kind of lead the congregation like Sunday to Sunday, you know, leading songs and that. Yes, I've done that for a really long time. But granted, like the title of worship leader for like the ministry and kind of orchestrating everything and all that was very recently given.
Because I have noticed that you in actually every congregation, I don't think it's just the Spanish speaking congregations, but there's like these made up terms and titles.
Yes.
And I'm always like, oh, I didn't know that there was like, oh, the worship director. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, this is the worship leader. I'm like, oh, but what about the other people that we worship? And they're not the worship leader. I'm like, oh, okay. So you've been leading specifically that team.
Yes.
But I'm just kind of curious about some of the practical, like, what are some of the challenges of being a worship leader for you? I mean, you know, within your context, I guess, planning center.
Yeah, planning center. Yeah. Love planning center.
Using planning center.
Yeah. I think some of my challenges,
let me say this too, really quickly, because I had you share one time. You shared with me your like your worship team's values or something like that, and I was really impressed with it because it was like, oh, this is great because it was biblical, theological, it was pastoral, it was practical. I mean, you do a really good job.
Of that, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was like, man, ChatGPT did a good job of writing. No, I'm just kidding. I
was so flattered when you said, "Wow, this is really good." I was like. What?
No, I tested it. I was like, I'm going to find all the theological problems in this document. And then it was great. So like, what are some of the challenges?
So I'm totally, by the way, I'm being completely sarcastic when I'm saying like natural born leader and everything. I'm actually a really independent individual. Like we said, you know, I'm the complete opposite of my husband. Naturally, I can be alone and be thriving. So it is hard for me to work in team settings because I am naturally not a very empathetic or sympathetic person.
Like, get over yourself.
Really, like people are telling me their struggles and I'm like, I have to remind myself, you know, like love and empathy. But so one of my struggles is that we have a small team right now because obviously our church is still pretty small. So we have a small team right now, and then we're all just such different people, and that's a great thing because you never want a team of individuals who are all the same because then you're just like robots.
But I mean, you do. Okay, let me just. You keep saying small team, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, you have.
I think it's 12 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just so you know, most church plants would consider that a very, very large team.
Well, I think.
Okay.
I think we started off with like 5 of us doing worship.
That might be true, but since I have known you, you guys have a lot of musicians.
We do. We are really blessed in that.
I mean, you do, yeah. Because there's church planners right now watching and listening to this who are like, we have a team of 1.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
when you're over here,
I probably sound really ungrateful.
You're like, it's so hard. We have such a small team with the 12 of us. We have to rotate around the schedule. I'm
so sorry.
Challenging. But okay, so I'm kind of teasing you. But I mean, it has been but you do have the challenges of having some people are new to music,
exactly.
or new to yeah. So you have what, 4 or 5 worship leaders or
it's 4 of us that take turns leading worship, because I think one thing that we wanted to avoid just as a church in general was to have like one person do everything. Also because I think most of us have grown up in the church or have been in the church for decades, so we're a bit overworked, and obviously the reality of life is that you get burnt out, so I think we're trying to avoid that. So
how's that going?
It's going well, actually. So I didn't really like the idea of that, if I'm being completely honest.
You were like, just me.
Yeah, I'm used to being like burnt out and working to my wits' end.
That's totally you, actually. I could totally see that where you're like, oh, I'm fine.
So it's actually an insult to me when people are like, well, we told somebody else to do it so that we could take some load off of you. Yeah. It's like insulting to me.
Yeah, you're like, you don't understand. I am a superhero. Yeah. So.
I've actually told people that. I've been like, that's kind of annoying. Yeah. You didn't have to do that.
No,
and you could tell they're like, oh, sorry.
Well, that's, I mean,
but I am learning.
Since you and I are the same personality wise, it is like, it's really like but it is, they're right.
Yeah.
Like, right. Because you do understand that there is some truth to that. Yes, right. But it is really hard to process that.
It is hard to give it up.
Because like, I can't stand when people are like, I hate when they're like, oh, well, you're so busy.
I hate it
so
much.
I hate it. Yeah.
I'm like, you don't even know me.
I'm like, first of all, I have high capacity.
Yeah.
I will let you know.
Anything.
Yeah. I'll let you know when I can't, and then later on, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not.
Then I'm at home and I'm like,
yeah.
I can't do this anymore.
It's so funny. Yeah. So that's been a challenge a bit.
That has been a challenge. Like delegating. Like I do micromanage. I acknowledge that 100%. But I am working on it. The Lord is working on me with that. So I think delegating, which I mean, I'm such a hypocrite because sometimes I'll be at home and I'm like, thank God I don't have to lead worship today. I actually had a day off. Yeah. Especially now that I'm pregnant, I'm definitely a little bit more willing to. I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant. I can't do anything.
Yeah. I know Haas is using that excuse all the time.
He really is.
He's like, we're pregnant. I'm like,
Yesterday he was like, oh, my side hurts. I'm like, nothing can hurt until I'm done hurting. And he was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're like, go to work.
Yeah, I'm like, you're fine.
Yeah, okay.
But so that's been a challenge, kind of delegating out work. It's also kind of been hard. So, like I said, I'm naturally very unsympathetic. So I am very straightforward, very blunt. And if something's not going well, like for example, if I have a team member who's showing up late all the time, I have to work really hard on talking to that person in a way where I don't just like kick them, and I'm just like, stop it, be better. That's one of my challenges personally as a leader is I do have to find a way to talk to that person, encourage them, that out of respect for the rest of the team members and their commitments to the team, that type of thing. Those are some of my challenges right now because I think we're used to, at least a specific group, we're used to leaders that don't really care like what you do as long as you show up and you play your instrument and you sing. Yeah. And personally,
so expectations oftentimes are lower and the other
yeah. And so naturally me as a leader, type A person,
you're like losing your mind.
I raise that bar like crazy, and I think some of the team members definitely aren't used to that, so they're trying to still do things the old way, and I'm trying to find the most gracious and kind and loving way to encourage them, like, hey, like I see potential to do better, let's step forward to
Yeah.
that. Not for me, because I remind people all the time, I'm like, I may be leader of this ministry, but by no means do I expect any of the team members to do this for me.
Yeah.
It's all for the Lord.
Yeah.
And as a type A person who has always given her best in everything, especially when it comes to the Lord, I encourage others to do the same.
Yeah.
Because we should give our first fruits to the Lord,
Yeah.
not just like our leftover time,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
I think part of the challenge with our personalities, first of all, I think every leader has to figure out how to manage that tension between like people who are really have a high capacity,
Yes.
Very gifted,
Yeah.
but low commitment.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of people who have really high commitment, but they might not have the same skill set. So like figuring out how to utilize those people. I mean, that was like when I first moved here, that was one of the challenges that I really had to figure out, because we had some people who are really gifted, but weren't quite as committed, like they would come to
Yes.
church once a month, and it's hard to build, because we were rebuilding when we got here. There's 35 people in the congregation, and it's
Wow.
like, how do you build with another person who comes once every month? It's hard, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's a common challenge. But then I think the second thing you kind of mentioned there is, tracing out the expectations is really helpful for people.
Yes.
When you know what they are, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's what I liked about that document, was that it's like very clear about who we're doing this for. It wasn't, there's not a question about, this is ultimately for the Lord,
Yeah.
But one of the challenges, this is the personality thing, is that, like, I had to learn this the hard way after, I think we went through, like, when I first started pastoring, we went through, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 youth leaders.
Oh, wow.
Like in like 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe even less. It might have been 2.5. I don't know. But it was like, what I realized one day is I assumed when somebody would come into that role, I assumed they went home and got on Amazon and typed in youth ministry and bought 20 books and read all of them.
And educated themselves.
I assumed, I did. I thought they were like, going, like signing up for classes and it wasn't until like our 3rd or 4th one where I was like, oh, that's like, I do that. No one else does that. Like, that's weird. Like, I'm actually the weirdo, like I'm the weirdo for buying all these books and reading all of them, like most people are like, I have a job and I'm like trying to raise kids and, so it's like figuring out how to navigate and provide. I mean, then actually that really helped really understand the necessity of trying to equip people, right? Like creating resources or putting resources together to help people
100%.
like, get there.
Yeah.
But your expectations document, I think, was really helpful because it like lays it out. It's like, hey.
I wanted to be really, again, I don't like leaving anything up in the air or ambiguous. Like I said, I'm a very blunt, straightforward, clear person. Like if I expect something, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say exactly how I expect it.
Yes,
So that document was kind of for that.
This is why I like you, though. I'm like, oh.
I sat down the team and I was like, I'm going to be honest. This is what I expect from you guys. When you expected to commit to this team, if you don't want to meet those expectations, I completely understand. I actually told one of our board members this one time. He kind of just asked me how things were going, and I'm like, it's been a challenge. I'm like, some people just, I don't know. Again, I don't want to jump to conclusions on behalf of people. Like, I want to sit down and have conversations with them as to why they can't meet certain expectations. But, that is one of the challenges, is that some people just don't want to meet those expectations. And it's like, I've told them what the expectations and the commitments are, but they just, can't get there.
Yeah.
And I did tell this board member, I was like, hey, but you know what? At the end of the day, I will gladly take the few that do want to commit and not have like a full orchestra or team. If there's just like 1 or 2 people that want to commit, even if they're not the most talented, it doesn't matter. That to me is more important than
commitment part. Is actually,
and especially their heart posture as well. We talk about that a lot. I never want, I'm really hesitant to invite people to be a part of the worship team, which a lot of people don't really understand. Even my own father, I've had multiple conversations with him about this, because as soon as people in a congregation find out someone can like play the guitar, or they like to sing, or they can play any instrument, they're like, oh my gosh, you should invite them to be part of the worship team. I'm like, okay, but where's their heart at? Like, where are they in their journey with the Lord? Not that anybody has to like earn the spot, but at the same time, I also don't want to invite someone to be a part of the worship team if they're a huge jerk. They're really mean. They're full of themselves.
Yeah.
They're going to tear down the other group
Mm-hmm.
members, stuff like that. I always take all of that into consideration. I'm like, I'd much rather have a really humble person who maybe doesn't know a whole lot about their instrument, but does it 100% to the
Mm-hmm.
Lord in offering, you know, in humility. I'm like, then maybe an expert musician who's just like the meanest person on earth, who actually doesn't care to do it for the Lord and just wants to be showing off.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of that too, though. I mean, so I agree and I disagree.
Yeah. I knew you were.
But I agree. I agree because I think you're right in the sense of like, I think putting someone on the stage who's a jerk is not going to be helpful.
Yeah, even if they're a pro musician.
Yeah, like, I mean, it won't be helpful because people see that they're like, oh, you know, like it's putting off. But I think I would say I disagree in the long term, which I know you actually probably agree with this, because it's like as your church develops and grows, you like the music team can be a process for discipleship, right?
Yes.
And the problem right now, or not the problem, let me strike that. The challenge you have right now as a congregation is that you're still in the developmental stages, right?
Yes.
So like you can't really develop because you are wearing 55 hats.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like at this stage, you're right. You like it's almost like, let's have people who are committed, who because you don't have the time and the bandwidth to be able to develop, right?
And I actually agree with that statement that worship can be a place for discipleship, because I was discipled in my coming up, you know,
it will
as
be
a
for
teenager
you
and stuff. Yeah.
It just can't be right now.
Exactly. And that's another thing that I've had, like my dad say, for example, drives me crazy. He's like invited people to the worship team practices without consulting me whatsoever. He'll be like, hey, so-and-so said they wanted to learn piano, so I just told her to come to practice
and you're like,
ask
I can't teach them how to play piano and also.
I'm like, Dad, I have 2 hours to practice Friday and Sunday worship. I'm like, and I'm here every Wednesday, sometimes Monday. I'm like, there's no way I have time to teach this person. I'm like, please don't make commitments on my behalf.
Yeah.
But I do agree that it can be a place of discipleship. But like you said, right now, we're sadly not in that place. Like, I wish I could. Yeah. I really wish I could.
And I think actually this would be, so I would like to have you on the podcast again.
Woo! I passed.
Since you like talking, and I like talking. But I think it'd be fun actually, because I was hoping we could do this today, but it's been so great. Why stop? But I think in our next week, it'd be really great to talk about stages of development, you know, because I think that'd be helpful for people who are church planning or not just church planners, but I think like I've been involved in church planning, but I've also been involved in what I call church revitalization, where it's like I stepped into churches that had been around for a long time, but had been through a season of decline, you know, so like there's a lot of similarities between church planning and church revitalization, but they are also kind of different because like both times we had a building. Yeah. And as you know, as a church planner, that's a big deal. Like finding a location, you know. But those stages are important to know because so when I say I agree and I disagree, I agree 100% with what you're doing. Yeah. Because I think you're doing the right thing for the moment you're in. Yeah. But like it can't be the end all, right? Because eventually you're going to need to have a process of discipleship, so that way the next generation can get developed to be able to like step into that, you know. And it really comes down to, because this is something I really admire about you, is that I think that you're very good at distinguishing between what's important and what is crucial.
Thanks.
And
I try.
Like there's a lot of things that are important, but at this moment right now, this is crucial.
What's life or death?
Yeah, it's like if we don't do this, we won't be here.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you've just done such a good job of navigating that. So here's my proposal: you come on and we talk about more about the stages of development. Yeah. Because and not even because I mean maybe it's some stuff like we don't even know. Yeah. Like this is what we're experiencing, you know, and then we can talk about some of the stages of development because I think that would be really very helpful for two groups in particular: church planners and then church revitalization. Because there are in my context of the vineyard, there are a lot of vineyard pastors who reach out who are trying to figure out they've just stepped into leadership roles in a church that's been, you know, struggling for maybe 5 to 10 years. Yeah. You know, and there are certain things that I think that can help get momentum. But also for church planning. But then the other thing too is I'd love to talk more about outreach. Like what does it look like in the Latino community, you know? Because my suspicion is I think it actually looks it looks really similar to in white world. So I'm gonna call it now.
It's almost crazy. It's almost like
White world.
we're all human
People.
even though we're different
Human
races.
beings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Crazy.
but it's interesting because I am really fascinated by, I mean, so much of like our two churches' relationships. This is gonna sound really weird, but it's like been kind of an experiment.
It has been a little bit.
Because I'm oftentimes like, I wonder how this is gonna work.
Yeah.
But my suspicion is because I feel like like the traditional and it really it is we should be clear that we're talking about maybe subsets of churches, right? Because like not every Latino church is the same.
Yeah.
Right. Like not just because you speak Spanish, there's such a variety.
Oh yeah. I've been to some churches in this area that it's like, and I hate to use the word vibes, but I'm Gen Z, so I'm going to say vibes.
Yeah.
The vibes are totally different.
Yeah.
And I could not feel more out of place, even though it's a Spanish-speaking church. And they're also Mexican, because obviously you've got like your Guatemalans and all that, because there's a surprising amount of Guatemalan people in this area. But yeah, technically like the culture is the same, but it's not. Like the church feels totally different.
Because white people can admit with that too. I mean, right? Like there's a lot of different theological. Because one of the things that if I will to my dying day, this will be my one rally cry to Pentecostals, because I consider myself like as I am a part of like I'm part of what I would call the global Pentecostal movement, because I do like I do ascribe to like the two sine qua nons of Pentecostalism globally are not speaking in tongues. It's actually commitment to the experiencing the Holy Spirit and then global missions. And I would consider myself both those. And I am a continuationist. I believe that prophecy and healing and speaking in tongues and all that stuff is for today.
Yeah.
So, I'm basically, I am.
Yeah.
But I always want to be like, but there's things about Pentecostalism that are cultural.
Yes.
And I feel like Pentecostals oftentimes are not able to distinguish between like, this is just something we it's part of our culture, or it's a thing that we like. Because it's okay to like things. It's like, but like, do you have to have a piano or drums on to be like, to do it?
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
you're
like,
not a Pentecostal church if the drummer doesn't really build up the bridge.
That's what I've heard.
Of the song, and really, the Holy Spirit won't move if the music isn't blaring.
If there isn't a C minor at some point in time,
exactly.
I totally
if the song isn't in a minor chord, it's not as anointed. I get
a minor
key.
And to my dying day, I will be like, no.
Which I love. I've never experienced someone counter that in the church, so I love seeing you say those things, and our church members are just like,
I'm like, do
what
you guys
is
know?
He saying? What is he
actually,
doing?
the funniest thing is when I spoke at one of your services. I can't remember what service was it.
It was our church anniversary.
Oh, was it your 1 year?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're all party. Every one of your services is a fiesta.
Yes.
But I remember after it, like, because I went into it and I was like, it was funny because I was like, your board's like, speak on whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like whatever the Holy Spirit puts in your heart. I'm like, oh, but can you give me some direction? Like what would be helpful,
They're like, the Holy Spirit will be your guide.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. I just become Catholic. No. But so I think I just spoke on like it was super classic Vineyard from my background, classic kingdom, proclamation of the kingdom, demonstration of the kingdom. But when we went into ministry time, it was like I very much operate on it. Everyone gets to play framework.
Yeah.
Like I'm not here to be like,
I loved that whole interaction.
Because I'm like, all right, well, and so like all these people come forward, and I'm like, well, peace out. You guys can pray for each other, basically. Like I'm not gonna do it.
Nobody knew what to do, so because I was on stage with you, because I was translating for you.
Hilarious,
and. I just remember you were going to the ministry time and you were just like, everybody, like if somebody raised their hand, said they needed prayer, the people around them, which isn't typical in our church. In our church, it's like only the anointed people can pray over others.
And I was not anointed that day.
Yeah.
Like,
you were just like, I mean, you're like surrounding people. You're like, hey, you pray. And I remember every time you did that, we had like our church leaders were kind of just like,
are we allowed?
Yeah. And then like the congregation was just like, they didn't know what to do. Like there was a panic.
I was like, take your hand, put it on their shoulder. And they're like,
quite literally. I remember you being like, walk.
This is how you do it.
You're like, walk over there. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. And they're like,
everybody.
Yeah. It was hilarious.
I was so confused.
And it was so awesome. to see like, but I mean, after that awkwardness of like having to explain how to,
Yeah.
well, I mean, in some ways I'm pushing back a little
Yes.
bit
Yeah.
because it's like, in some ways that I want to say this should be the goal. Like
Yeah.
your church leadership's goal should be to equip, because I think that's what the
Yes.
Bible says, right? So it's like, yeah, if it were me, I'd be like, my number one goal should be that our whole congregation can pray for each other.
Yeah.
Like that, I've been telling our church forever. Like I've got 3 goals. Like there's 3 things that I want our church to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be able. I want them to read the Bible.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to pray for each other,
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to, like be able to share their faith. Like
Yeah.
those are the 3 things. I'm like, if you guys can do those 3 things, we're great.
Yeah.
And not everybody can do that. So it's like, we're never going to stop doing that,
Yeah.
because like 20% of your church leaves every year, according to the national statistics. It means you have 22% of people coming in all the time, which is why I want my wife to quit saying, you tell some of the same stories. It's like, yeah, because we have new people. After 3 years, they're all new. I don't know any of these people, because it's true. Like you got to, I mean, I learned early on, like you just keep on telling your story. You can never stop telling your story, because you always have new people that don't know the story, But it's like, it was the funniest thing though, is like after you're like the congregation finally kind of got over that awkwardness of like, it's okay. Cause there's a lot of intimidation.
Oh, absolutely. People just kept like looking around. They're like,
okay?
me?
Yeah. And I'm like, yes, you, you. But somebody came up to me after it and they were like, that was like awesome. And I was like, oh, like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, like everybody was like, because a lot of people came forward for prayer.
Yeah.
And then people were praying for each other, and they were like, but you, like, and they I don't think they knew how to say it in English.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like you didn't manipulate any of them. And I was like, that's the nicest thing I've ever heard. Like, thank you. But I was
That's kind
like,
of sad to hear.
well,
we weren't manipulated.
but it was like,
Woo!
in some ways, that's the cultural thing, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because I think because as a charismatic Pentecostal person, I think that our movement is oftentimes guilty of that, right?
Yes.
Like we pull on the emotional heartstrings, and
Yeah.
then we use our anointed holy leader,
Well,
vibes.
again, it's like you mentioned earlier when we were talking earlier, the whole honor system too.
Yeah.
Like especially in the Hispanic community, it's all about honor and respect. And if there's someone that knows more, has spent more time in the church than you, you're going to completely honor that person's going to do it, and you're going to sit back.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think a lot of leaders take advantage of that.
Yes.
Right.
But we don't say that.
Yeah. Well, I will. Like, I will. But I mean, it's true. I mean, even in the vineyard, I mean, I think that one of the things that I've been saying for a long time is that I think that while we have a biblical theology that believes that all followers of Jesus have the indwelling presence of the Holy Spirit. We all believe, everybody in the vineyard believes that. We have this value called everybody gets to play, where we believe that. But I do think that at times we do things that undermine that theology.
Yeah.
Right. So we say this, but then we only have certain people do the stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you can say all day long that we believe that everybody can pray for the sick, but if only the pastoral team does it, then we're kind of like, we don't really believe it then, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not, I guess my point is that it's not like vineyard churches have cracked the code. I think that we have to continue to crack the code.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to go back to default where it's only the leaders that are doing everything, And it's no doubt that leaders should model and should equip and should train and should help this. But the goal should never be, like, I feel like the goal should never be me or you or just the leaders doing it. Like for me, like I honestly believe this is true in my heart of hearts. Like for me, like I feel like the most successful as a pastor is when nobody knows who the pastor is. Seriously. Like I'm like, yeah, I feel like that's like, okay, we're doing something right. If no one's really sure exactly who like the lead pastors are, then we are killing it, And then secondarily, if I can like just go to church and be there and not do anything, I'm like, oh, this is great, And so when I don't preach and I'm just able to go, I'm like, this is. So it's because I feel like that's healthy, Not everybody agrees with that in the tradition of the Pentecostal charismatic world, but it's like, to me, that's a sign of health, right? Because I feel like if I were to die tomorrow, or I'm out, I'm going to Peru, I'm called to be a missionary, it's like I feel like our church can survive. It's not like contingent on me. Now they're going to be really in trouble with the editing of videos and things because I do a lot of that. but everywhere else they're gonna be okay, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Because you've, like you said, you've equipped people, which I think is
try to,
really
yeah,
rare. At least I see it in our church. It is really rare for
yeah.
a leader to not take advantage of their title and want to
Mm,
do everything and not equip others. So
yeah.
that's a super common thing to see,
Why?
unfortunately, that I've seen in all of the churches I've
Yeah. Why do
grown
you
up
think that
in.
is? I mean, why? Okay, why are? Because I understand the Pentecostal theology
Yeah.
framework, which I disagree with. I mean, I'm like, nah, I will rip that theology apart
Yeah.
using the Bible.
Yeah.
Because we've actually talked about this a little bit,
Yes.
you know, you're like, well, this is, and I'm like, oh, that's not, like, the Bible doesn't teach that, you
Yeah.
know? But I'm curious, like, why do you think that the Hispanic slash Latino community is susceptible to that too? Is it the honor? Because you guys are very
Yeah.
honoring. Like,
Yeah.
I show up, I feel like a king. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, Pastor Lucas, especially your mom, you know, she's like,
Yeah.
here's your food. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. White people don't do this,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
No, they don't. They're like, oh, get a job, get
Yeah.
another job, you
Like,
know?
who are you?
Yeah, exactly. It's totally different. I mean, do you feel like it's susceptible somewhat to that?
Yes, 100%. I think, like you said, it has to do with that honor and respect thing. We're also just very naturally prideful people. I think that's one of the things. And I don't ever point a finger with like the intent to make anybody feel bad for their
Hmm.
flaws or struggles. I say it as someone who's also struggled with pride, is I do feel like, unfortunately, like in the Hispanic community, people are very proud. And so any sort of achievement, like being lead pastor of a church,
Hmm.
I mean, that pride, I think, is a weakness that I think the enemy likes to take advantage of a little bit. And so it does kind of go to your head. I'm lead pastor. I'm supposed to lead.
Mm,
So I'm going to do all of this and they'll learn by watching me or something. You know, I don't know. I think
yeah.
it has to do with that. And then I think it also has to do with the fault with that whole honor and respect system where everybody else just kind of feeds into it. I
Mm,
think they think that they're doing the right thing because they're respecting someone's title. So I think that's why we're a little bit more susceptible to that. Because I've seen it, and I hate to use this term, but we've talked about it a lot. I feel like in the Hispanic church, there's a lot of, and maybe you can help me say this a nicer way, but people who are butt kissers.
a
I
theology of
can't.
butt kissing it is actually true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I hate to use that word, but I can't think of another one. Where, yeah, I think unfortunately people just feed so much into the like whole like your lead pastor, so we have to respect it. Like you said, when you
Mm,
come into our church, like even I have been raised my whole life. Like I've been literally told, like if they're pastor, you can't call them like, for example, like I couldn't call you brother Luke, kind of, you know, because in the
mhm.
Hispanic church, we call everybody brother and sister.
Yeah.
Just say, you know, like I would be like Sister Selene, like to little
Yeah.
kids, you know, they'd call me Sister Selene
Yeah,
or like
I know.
other congregants.
I'm always like, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
So obviously I'm a little bit being one younger, because even like younger generations of like Hispanic kids, especially if they were born here, don't really live by that whole like honor
mhm.
system. We've kind of fallen out of that
Yeah.
to our parents' dismay.
This is my theory about the second and third generation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like yeah. Okay, that's gonna be
Which
a
we're
subject. We're
considered,
gonna talk about that.
yeah, a
Yeah.
separate conversation. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'd be considered a disgrace to our parents if we're not like honoring someone and their title. But obviously, just being younger, and being Mexican American. When you told me, because I remember I used to refer to you as Pastor Luke all
Yeah,
the
so
time to your
awkward.
face. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're like, just call me Luke.
Can
And
you
I was
just
like,
call me Luke?
yeah, I was like, thank God. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. So now I just call you Luke. But trust me, when people around me from
Yeah.
our church hear me just call you Luke,
Yeah.
they're dying inside. They're like, oh, she's so
I know.
disrespectful. Oh
I
my
know.
gosh.
They're always like, I'm so sorry for Selene.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm like, you can make it up for me with
My
tacos.
own father is probably like, I'm so sorry for her. You
No,
know?
I think your dad's starting to
Yeah.
be. No, I know
Get
it's awkward.
friendly.
Well, but I think that is part of the. So navigating these I mean, because oh man, there's so many thoughts I have right
Cultural
now about.
norms.
Well, they're just okay. So part of the thing. So okay, not push back in a like I disagree with you about the Latino pride thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because you
yeah.
as a Latino could be like, us Mexicans, we're prideful. You know, actually, you would not do it in a southern
No,
accent.
yeah, I was
so
gonna
I'm
say,
so
like,
sorry.
that's not the accent we would
Yeah,
use.
no,
but
it's not. I don't know why I
get
did
what you're
that.
trying
Yeah.
to say. Yeah.
That's so awkward. But yeah, but like I'd say one of the reasons why. So from an empathetic, you know, also like just a cultural. There's like a lot of theologians that do a lot of work on immigration, the theology behind it, and some of the implicit biases and whatnot. But I think
Yeah.
some of it's like, well, it makes sense why a lot of Latinos, that'd be the way that we probably should say it. It's like a lot of Latinos may become pride down the line, but it starts out with there's a lot of commitment to like overcome a lot of barriers and challenges, and like to get there you have to have a lot of self drive. And I mean, like the story, like some of my friends that have immigrated to the US, when they've told me their stories, I'm just like, that should be a movie, or at least 5 movies, because it's like so crazy, you know, what the obstacles you had to overcome. And so I can see how that down the road might turn into like an unhealthy pride, because it's like, you know, like, do you know what I've overcome, you know? And now I'm amazing. And it's like, you know, like, yeah, you know, so there's reasons why it gets there. Right.
Yeah.
But I think with some of the honor, the differences in that, what I have noticed is that it is kind of a challenge, because like in the vineyard, I should say, like the more demeaning we can be, the more self-demeaning I can be as a pastor, the more social equity I get with the congregation.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, for us, like American Christianity had this like long stream of, I'm the man of God, honor me. And then they were all like cheating on their wives and stealing money or whatever. Right. So now people like, they're actually like, I think my assumption is that most people, when they hear I'm a pastor, they're like,
Like, are you sure?
Yeah. Like, well, okay, there's that. We're like, all, did you see the tattoos? That is true. That's your congregation, though.
Yeah, it is.
I think in white world, it's more like, it's almost like a suspicion, because there's been so many moral failures, and it's been all it is now. I mean, like my assumption now for anybody who's a leader, I'm like, they're probably stealing or cheating or, you know, doing some nefarious stuff, because we've had so many moral failures. So that's on one hand, there's that. But I think with the Latino community, part of the challenge of navigating, of trying to like, because I'm not like trying to be, actually, I think I want to be a pastor to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I want to be able to, and I don't mean necessarily like all your congregational people, like I'm their pastor. I mean, like I want to be able to serve them in any, like.
You mean be a pastor in a biblical sense?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But I'm not trying to like humble brag. I just want to serve, you know, but I mean it in the sense of like, truly, like there's people in your congregation that I love, and if they can't, and some have like come and ask for prayer for things, and I'm like, oh, absolutely, like I would do that, but it has nothing to do with me being their pastor. It just I follow Jesus, and like
that's why you do
Jesus...
it. But some of them may be asking because you're a pastor, and they consider you more anointed than if they came to like me for prayer. For example.
Totally, yeah. So it's like I feel like it's kind of a challenge, because I'm trying to like navigate. Actually, a lot of this is really challenging at times, right? Because it's like on one hand, I want to reaffirm like the fact that there are people in your, like, hey, you could talk to Selene, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have done that to you multiple times, where I'll recommend you as being the solution to the.
Great, thanks.
You were in the room one time when I did.
I've been a witness to that.
Yeah, I was
and
like,
I'm like, no.
That's a great question, guys. Did you guys know that Selene could do everything you're asking me? And then you're like slowly shrinking.
I'm like, please no. Everybody in the room is looking at me like, no, she can't.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm going to continue to do that, because it's like, yes, you can. But like, it's interesting, because like I've thought about this. If I really want to reach more Latinos, I don't know if I can wear flip-flops all the time.
No. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So it's true. Like, so I think part of navigating that is like, I think accepting, or where I see is being the best way forward, is that I'm not going to probably be able to reach the first generation Latino immigrant from Mexico.
Yeah.
Like I don't speak enough Spanish to even come close, right? Yeah, I know the foods.
Yeah.
I'm like, al pastor. Oh, get some pollo. You know, like I know all the, like that's all I got is tacos.
The taco meat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I've told you before, I'm like known in the community as the taco pastor.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Because we used to do these Taco Tuesday videos, but so it's like I'm not going to be able to reach them, you know, first and foremost, probably because of the language barrier. But then secondarily, I think there's these cultural things where it's like, no, if I'm not wearing a suit and tie, I'm not even going to be able to like, but so it's like, okay, well, the smartest and wisest thing for us to do is to either partner with a church that wants to, which is your congregation, or in the future plant a La Viña that is going to be intentionally focused on reaching primary Spanish speaking people.
Yeah.
But I do think though that like it seems like our congregation, our cultural context, and myself, I can definitely reach the second and third and fourth generation
Yeah,
Latinos
absolutely.
because like you and I, like there's no barriers, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, you can just say things about me in Spanish that I won't know when you're talking about
I
me.
do it all the time.
Oh, I got the headphones now. I'm like, ding, ding. I'm like, translation. I'm like,
No,
what?
who got him those?
I'm like, oh, thank you,
He's
Jonathan.
getting away with it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, yeah. And now that I got the Ray-Ban Meta glasses,
Yeah.
I'm like, ding, ding, translate. Okay. They're talking about me now. So, yeah, so there's like all these, but I mean, I think that the more self-aware we are and the more that we exegete culture and understand that there's some people that like, they just will never be able to see me in the way that or my calling, because it's like, whether it's cultural or whatever, it's like,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I think we have to do our best to empower as many people to be able to lead, because I feel like if we have a church of, if we have hundreds of people in our communities that are able to like do the stuff and pray for the sick and, share the gospel and all that type of stuff, it's better than having like one or
Yeah.
two people, So I don't know. I think that it is challenging though.
It is. I think now that you mention it, I think a lack of discipleship, at least speaking about our specific congregation, is definitely what is causing that lack of like equipping of others. Because I want to say the reason why I say it's more cultural is because I don't think it's necessarily like a theological misunderstanding, because I mean you hear the sermons all the time and you hear it and I've heard it from the people that I would consider a little bit too full of themselves, and then they preach this, but you hear it all the time from the pulpit, like no one is more important than anybody else in the kingdom of God. We're all God sees us all the same. There is no hierarchy, like we are all the same in the Lord's eyes. You hear that all the time, or like, we have to be humble. I'm not more than you. You're not more than me. You hear it all the time, but they don't actually live it. And I think, unfortunately, also, like I said, that lack of discipleship, because right now we actually don't have like a formal discipleship program. I think the most that we've done, and this isn't bashing our leaders, this is just I think what I'm aware of, I could be lacking some information, but I think the most that we've established in regards to a discipleship program is like at our cell groups, like our Bible studies. I think they're all just reading a book right now. And it's like meant to be like a discipleship book, like it talks about, coming to the Lord for the first time, experiencing all that, learning about the Holy Spirit and all that. But it's not, I don't think it's enough discipleship, because I think a lot of discipleship needs to happen one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. My mom actually, I think, is a great example of someone who carries out discipleship in their daily life. She creates these bonds with people who she then kind of like mentors.
Yeah.
And she's become like a spiritual mom to them, sometimes to a fault. But that's a conversation for another day.
Only when those people consider your mom their mom. And you're like,
it
that's
irks
my
me.
mom.
Yeah, I'm like, that's actually my mom. But
as I'm walking up to your mom, like, oh, hey, mom.
Yeah, I'm like,
you're
no.
Like, no.
Yeah,
White.
my mom. I am very selfish when it comes to my parents. I'm like, they're my parents.
No,
they love me.
I understand though. They're amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I think my mom is a great example of someone who disciples, I think, on a level that I think Jesus intended, where you create relationship with people and you hear them out in their struggles, and then you take them to the Word or to the Lord and you help them grow in their faith in that way. I think that's what our church lacks, which is why we don't have people that are equipped to do that stuff.
And I mean, in reality though, that is the great American church issue, you know, because I think most churches in the United States, and actually probably a lot of the world, discipleship's always been a deficit in the church for as long as the church is really, I mean, especially when you compare like the patristic, the early first 300 or 400 years of church history, like when you hear their process of baptism, like they would catechize all baptismal candidates, would go through a very long process of discipleship before they would even do it.
Yeah.
And now we're like, we have to have as many numbers of baptisms as possible, right? Because it makes us look cool, I mean, oftentimes that's what happens, and so, I think that's pretty common, but I also feel like too, the other side of the coin for your congregation is that you're still so new, like those processes, but that actually might be one of the reasons why, like personally, I think that, church planning, having more resources and maybe more support systems can
Yes.
help that, right? Because like one of my friends, they before they even planted their church,
Yeah.
like they developed a whole system for discipleship, which I didn't
Yeah.
do. So I mean, I'm not saying like you guys should do it differently like I did it. I'm not, no, like,
Yeah.
my friend did it the right way because they had like all the systems in place ahead of time, and I'm like, dude, can I get all those systems? Because our church
Yeah.
doesn't have any of them,
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it seems like that's always the challenge. But here's what's cool is that you do have like people like your mom, and I know many other people in your congregation
Yeah.
that are doing that,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, can you imagine what it'll look like when you have in addition to the people who are doing it, you also have the systems in place to like,
Yes.
it's like, oh yeah, it's like unstoppable.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Exactly.
well, this has been really fun.
Yes.
Are
Loved
you gonna
it.
come back
Maybe. We'll see.
if we get enough comments?
Yeah. Get enough interaction. Maybe.
Okay. Well, I think we should do another, but I think we should have your husband too.
He loves
you?
to talk too.
Would you do it with him too?
I don't know if I would do it with him.
Oh,
I don't like him that much.
okay. Sorry, Haz. It'd be fun. Well, you're coming back. Okay, so the next time we're gonna talk about church planting, church development,
Yes.
and then whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, thank you for listening, but thanks for coming on. Seriously, this has been
Yeah.
really fun. I love talking
It was very
with you.
fun.
So,
Loved it.
all right. Well, like, subscribe, all those things you're supposed to do, and we'll talk to you soon. So, bye.